This lesson is about skin cancer. We are on page 79 in your book. It is a life lesson. At the top, there's a couple of pictures of the different kinds of skin cancer. So skin cancer is actually pretty common. It accounts for about 4 million cases of cancer a year. And we're going to divide it into approximately 3 major categories. We have the basal cell carcinoma, the squamous cell carcinoma, and the malignant melanoma. The basal cell carcinoma is the first type that we're going to talk about. And it's called basal cell carcinoma because it arises from the stratum basal or the stratum germinativum. Remember, it's the same thing. So this particular type of skin cancer is very slow growing and rarely metastasizes. Metastasize means to spread. And one of the things that I do want to mention about cancer in general is that it arises from your own cells. Remember, we talked about mitosis in chapter 3, where cells continually divide over and over and over again, specifically in the skin. Now, when that occurs, sometimes things go wrong. The DNA is not stopping at G0, and you keep getting these overgrowths of cells that aren't responding to the command to stop, essentially. And that's what creates a tumor. So these types of cancers are skin cancers, so they are cancers of your own skin cells. Except for malignant melanoma, that's a cancer of the melanocytes. Still part of you, but not quite a skin cell. So we're going to start with some pictures of basal cell carcinoma. And one of the main reasons that we are talking about and showing you pictures of skin cancer is because as future massage therapists, you are going to be in the unique position of seeing an individual's skin on a regular basis, which means that you will be able to notice when any changes occur, probably before they do, because you are used to seeing their skin in a certain way, maybe once a week, once every couple of weeks, once a month. And if something changes, you will notice. That's an important role that we actually play as massage therapists. I mean, do you ever look at your back skin? Do you see it on a regular basis? I mean, not unless you get out of the shower and go like this in the mirror or something like that. So for a massage therapist to see your back skin on a regular basis is a pretty amazing thing because they will know if something doesn't look quite right. All right, so let's share some images. Here we are. So these are basal cell carcinomas. As you can see, most of these look the same. This one over here is pretty typical of a basal cell carcinoma. And by the way, basal cell carcinoma is the most common type of skin cancer. It's also, right, the slowest growing, and it hardly ever metastasizes. So that's all good. That's all in your favor. Pardon me. This typically appears on the skin of the nose and the face and is really a direct result of UV radiation to the nuclei of your cells. In other words, too much sun. So if you take a look at this one over here, this is pretty typical of a basal cell carcinoma. It has kind of a pearly appearance to it, with a centralized depression. So as you can see, a lot of these have a dip in the middle of them or kind of several dips in the middle. This one's harder to see, but there's a dip right in the middle of that one. Same with this one down here. There's a central depression in it. And again, with the pearly edge, kind of looking shiny. It says pearly in your book, but shiny would be a better word. Okay, and you can see this one looks a little shiny here, okay? So that's what basal cell carcinoma looks like. Now, as far as recognizing this kind of skin cancer, again, it's not that you need to know that it's skin cancer. It's really the change in the skin over time. So when a client comes in, and let's say it's an older male, and you've been seeing this person maybe for a couple of months, and they start to get something on their skin that maybe looks like this. Well, that's a change, right? That's something that wasn't there before. And maybe you notice it in one session and write it in your SOAP notes, and then they come in again and it's still there. And then maybe it starts to get a little depression in the middle. Then we want to make the client aware of it, and of course not scare them by saying, hey, I think you have skin cancer, because we're not allowed to diagnose. What we are allowed to do is stick to the facts. Client, I noticed that you have a spot on your face that wasn't there before, and it was there the last session, and it's there this session, and I'm noticing that it's changing. Have you had it looked at? That's all you have to say, okay? All right, so let's go on to squamous cell carcinoma. Got some lovely pictures of squamous cell carcinoma here. So squamous cell arises in the epidermis and is also slow growing. This one is a little more rare, however. Only about 200,000 to 300,000 cases of this one a year versus the basal cell carcinoma, which is millions of cases a year. Same kind of thing. This typically occurs on the skin of the nose and the face, around the ears. This is someone's bald head here. It's UV exposure. So you want to make sure that the areas of the face and head are well lubricated with sunscreen. Okay. This is a little bit different. It does not look the same. We have more of a scaly appearance with the squamous cell carcinoma. This one typically doesn't look shiny. It looks usually more ulcerated, more cratery, because cratery is not really a word, but it is now. Like rough looking. But again, that could also be like a brush burn or something. It changes over time, and do the changes persist? Now, some forms of squamous cell carcinoma may metastasize. So this one is a little more dangerous than something like a basal cell carcinoma, but not as dangerous as malignant melanoma. And I'm going to try to get the screen up here. There we are. Malignant melanoma looks quite a bit different than the others, as you can see. This is the most deadly of all skin cancers, primarily because it does metastasize, and not just along the skin, it can metastasize internally and affect your organs. So you could have one spot of malignant melanoma on your skin, but then have it internally as well. Now, this is a melanoma, which means that it is a cancer of the melanocytes. So when you have a melanoma, you typically have darker patches. You can see that these look quite a bit darker than the other ones because of the melanin. Now, the thing about melanoma is that they a lot of times arise from a pre-existing mole. So if a client has a mole that changes over time, that's another thing that you want to make a note of. Hey, that mole's pretty small. Okay, the next time, that mole's a little bigger. And the next time, that mole's definitely a bit bigger than it was before. That's the kind of thing that you're taking note of. If, however, somebody comes in and this is your first time seeing them, and they have something that looks like this, which is black in the center, but ultimately kind of multicolored, or something that looks like this, which is raised, irregular, kind of multicolored, you do want to make your client aware of what you see. And again, you don't mention the word skin cancer, you just kind of stick to the facts and say, this is what I see on your skin. Have you had it looked at? That's all you have to do. And I'd like to just keep reiterating that, because it doesn't matter to you necessarily whether or not you can pick out specific skin cancers. I mean, you're not trained to do that. You leave that to the professionals. What does matter is that you make note of it and let your client know that it is on their skin. This is an older gentleman's head. It is the top of his head. I guarantee you he never saw that, because how do you see stuff on the top of your head? You can't. So again, this is one of your many roles as a massage therapist, is skin spotter, for lack of a better word. Now, skin cancer, well, malignant melanoma specifically, can be fatal if it's not treated. And unfortunately, the risk is higher if an individual has had a pretty bad sunburn as a child. That tends to damage DNA for the long term. So making sure that you are slathering those little bodies with sunscreen is of utmost importance, and teaching them about sun safety is utmost importance. And of course, for you as an adult, you also need to be aware of the risks of UVA and UVB rays. Ironically, having said this, after we say we need the sun to help synthesize vitamin D in our skin, yes, we do, but everything in moderation. We need about 15, 20 minutes of sunlight versus hours and hours of sunlight at the beach or at a sporting event or something like that. I know you know the difference. Okay, so that's it for skin cancers. I wanted you to be able to recognize them, recognize that they look different than anything else on the skin. And I wanted you to understand your role as a massage therapist in noting things that are different about an individual's skin. And then last but not least, we have the ABCs of mole assessment. So the ABCs of mole assessment go like this. You have A for asymmetry. And actually, you know what? I'm just going to bring this back up because it'll be a little bit easier to describe these this way. Also, you do have a Word document with the ABCs of mole assessment. So A is asymmetry. Does this look symmetrical to you? No, it does not. Asymmetry. So typically skin cancers are not symmetrical. They don't look like regular moles, which are typically round or oval shaped. B is border. Same type of thing. Does it have an irregular border? Is it kind of raised here, but not over here? Is the border rough or is it smooth? You know, in regular moles and beauty marks, or whatever you want to call them, they typically are symmetrical, and they typically have the same kind of border all the way around. You know, maybe it is rough all the way around, or maybe it's smooth all the way around, but the point is, it is all the same. With skin cancers, they just are not. So the border is irregular, right? C is color. Same thing. We have a couple different colors within the same spot here, here, a couple different colors here. Even here with these little spots, we have colors that don't quite look the same or don't quite look right. A mole is usually uniform in color. It's a tan to a dark brown, but it's the same all the way through. D is diameter. Now this is a very small one, but typically a skin cancer will have a diameter of 6 millimeters or more. 6 millimeters is simply the size of a pencil eraser. So it's really not that big. So, I mean, that's 6 millimeters or more. You can see that these are bigger than 6 millimeters clearly. But it does not mean that a mole that is larger than 6 millimeters must automatically be skin cancer. I do have a client who has a rather large mole on his posterior leg, and it is not cancerous. It's been there forever. It's never changed. It's just a big mole. E is elevation. And again, we have irregularities in elevation. So part of this is raised, part of this is flatter. Same with this one over here. We have a slightly raised area, we have like a medium area, and then we have a flatter area. So what we're looking for in skin cancer versus not skin cancer is irregularities in something that's not cancerous. It's uniform in color, uniform in diameter, uniform in elevation, all of those A, B, C, D, E's. When something is cancerous, it typically isn't, and that's the point, okay? So the ABCs of mole assessment are in a Word document that will be posted right after this video, okay? And I do expect you to have kind of a working knowledge of those, just get an idea or a basic understanding of what each of those means in terms of mole assessment. But again, you are looking for changes over time. Okay? All right. When we come back, we will be talking pathophysiology. So in other words, what goes wrong with the skin? See you soon.